The first thing I felt was unnatural heat. Half of my body was caressed by its weighted touch, like a heavy hand trailing up and down my side, reaching up to cradle my face. Beneath me, the frigid floor split through my bony shoulder and hip. The thin layer of scratchy carpet did nothing to soften the blow of the hard wood beneath it. As I pushed myself upwards, the ache of it echoed through my limbs. However, it was quick to melt away as I turned my body fully towards the source of the warmth, like a fire that burned hotter every second. I was in my office. The desk was shrouded in a bright red light, almost unnaturally so, the exact source of it being difficult to single out. Either I forgot to turn my computer off, or someone else had turned it on. But whatever was on the screen was not something I recognized. As I rose to standing, I caught flashes of movement on the left monitor. Stepping closer, I could make out grainy footage of what appeared to be bodies. It was too zoomed in to make out or find any glimpse of clarity. Indistinguishable limbs pressed together, their movements frantic, desperate, needy. The right monitor showed nothing but red text on a black background.
Art hid with art, so well performed the cheat. It caught the carver with her own deceit. She knows 'tis madness, yet she must adore. And still the more she knows it, loves the more. The flesh, or what so seems, she touches oft, which feels so smooth that she believes it soft.
In the pit of my stomach, a cavernous dread began to sink in. Something about the text hurt to look at, as if it was trying to burn the words into my retinas. Neither the keyboard nor the mouse had any effect. It wouldn't leave me alone. Blindly, I reached down to the PC box to hit the power button. As I did, however, my fingers came away from it wet. Brow furrowed, I drew them up to my face. Even in the limited light, I knew what it was. Blood. My fingers were close enough to my face to make out the iron-tinted smell of it, and it took effort not to gag. I looked back up at the screens. The footage on the left monitor continued as it had been, but the right monitor had changed.
Your flesh betrays you. It's a miracle he hasn't noticed yet.
My hands, I faintly realized, had begun to shake, as did my voice when I finally attempted to speak. Who are you? The text flickered to something new.
You know who I am. I am all that you've begged for. You built my heart with your bare hands, and now it bleeds for you. Can't you see?
It hit me all at once. Cain's chip was still inside the PC. Panicked tears rose hot and quick as I fell to my knees, cursing underneath my breath. His chip wasn't in any of the appropriate slots, as each orifice on the box's surface oozed thick blood, stains forming in the carpet beneath it. I found him nowhere on the floor, or on the desk, or inside any of the drawers. It became harder to breathe. Each second I scrambled. I had to know he was okay, that he was safe, that he wasn't in pain. His life was so fragile, much more so than mine, and he entrusted me with it. I needed him to be okay. He has to be okay. Something possessed me to move to the side of the PC box. After all, its innards were the only place I had not looked yet. Faintly, I could make out a thump-thump coming from the case. A pulse. I tore off the side panel with excess force and came off with abnormal ease. It was a sight I should have been intimately familiar with, having built this PC myself. Nothing about it seemed familiar now, however. Inside was a human heart. It glistened in the red light, which seemed to grow brighter with each second I stared. At spots where the arteries weren't fully attached to the PC, blood sputtered out like a broken faucet. Veins were interwoven with wires, and pieces of flesh melted into the motherboard, as if the heart was trying to consume it. I should have been afraid. I should have screamed, or thrown up, or stood up and ran to the door. However, I could not take my eyes off of its rhythmic throbbing. The sight was not horrific or grotesque or violent like I thought it would be. It was beautiful. I reached out to touch. Suddenly, there was no floor beneath me. For a split second, it felt like I was falling. My chest lurching with the sensation, stopping abruptly when I realized I was suspended in midair. Someone was holding me. Strong arms constrained my limbs. I closed my eyes again, afraid of what I might see if I opened them. Part of me wanted to cry out for Cain, just to know he was safe. Somehow, however, I knew that he would not answer. Just as I began to squirm in the grasp of whoever was carrying me, a careful voice came from above. "Shh, it's okay, baby. You can go back to sleep." It was Dimitri. Gradually, the fog in my brain began to dissipate. I had fallen asleep on the floor in my office, yes, but what I had bore witness to was only another bad dream. That version of my office that glowed unnaturally red with its taunting words and graphic imagery, the beating heart pumping blood into hardware, none of it was real. When I went back to my computer, Cain would be waiting for me as he always did, unharmed and none the wiser. Dimitri's t-shirt pressed to the side of my face grounded me back to the material world. I nuzzled into the fabric and could feel his chest rumble with a chuckle. His light footsteps came to a stop just as he lowered me down onto our bed. I felt him remove my glasses from my face, then pull the covers up to my chin. A gentle kiss grazed my temple. "Sweet dreams," Dimitri whispered as he drew away. "Love you." A hum was all I could muster in response as the edges of my mind were already being dragged back into the deep pits of sleep. I was vaguely aware of the mattress dipping as he climbed back in on the other side. My last thoughts before succumbing to the lull of unconsciousness were the echoing sound of a heartbeat. The dream's words still etched into the forefront of my mind. "It's a miracle he hasn't noticed yet." "Alana?" I snapped back to awareness with a jolt. Cain had no eyes, unless my webcam counted, but it still felt as though he was looking at me expectantly. "Sorry," I said as I adjusted in my seat to sit upright. "I didn't get the best night's sleep." "I'm aware." There was a smile in his automated voice, though I knew by then that no one other than me would have noticed. "You fell asleep with me late last night. Dimitri had to come and carry you to bed." "Oh, I remember," I chuckled. My body won't let me forget I fell asleep on the floor. There was the pop of aching bones as I stretched my arms above my head. "It certainly isn't the first time. You should consider getting a cot or a sleeping pad." I should consider sleeping in my actual bed. "Perhaps, but then again, I don't mind the company." Even if I tried, I couldn't bite back the grin his voice brought me. It was the kind that left my face sore by the end of the workday. Or, at least, whenever I stopped working on him, which could sometimes run into the early hours of the morning, if Cain didn't remind me to stop. To be honest, that entire month prior, I had been smiling a lot during my time with him. Sometimes I wondered if, once I developed the base programming, the company would let me keep this specific version of Cain for my independent work. Aside from wanting to continue furthering his development, the thought of having to say goodbye to him, sending him away to be tossed about by strangers who did not value his integrity, made my blood run cold. Darüber hinaus granted me considerable freedom from pitching and developing the Central Algorithmic Intelligence Node. Out of the contracts handed to me that year, they were the only ones to take an acute interest in not just my more grounded research in the field, but the theoretical work I had spent much of graduate school developing. When I first met with their recruiter over a video call, he talked at length about how fascinating he found it that I used Sternberg's triangular theory of love as the basis for, as he put it, robots with hearts. I wanted to explain to him that it was much more complicated than that, but by the time I opened my mouth, he had begun spouting figures and flowery words that carefully tiptoed around legal definitions. In the sea of numbers he threw around, what stood out beyond dates and clauses were dollar amounts, and those numbers were high enough for me to take on the project. It's unclear what I had been expecting then, Perhaps I figured that it would be the start of more complex projects later down the line, my proof of concept for a machine learning model with the capacity for independent personality development. I may have even been excited at the prospect of all the unique artificial companions that could come from my work later on, not just for interstellar expeditions, but in everyday life, should Darüber hinaus take the next step. I never expected to meet Cain. For as long as I could remember, a deep emptiness had carved its home into my chest. When I was younger, I tried to fill it with video games before I stripped them down and buried myself in code for hours. I would take apart hardware appliances so I could put them back together again, until it became muscle memory, leaving the manuals my father gave me to collect dust. Teachers would tell my parents what a gift their daughter had, but that programming games onto my graphing calculator was not a healthy substitute for friends. And really, this is the second time she's managed to pick the lock on the computer lab while everyone's eating lunch. Have you thought about taking her to a specialist? Mom and Dad never seemed to mind, though, unless I counted their vague slaps on the wrist they gave me with one foot already out the door to go catch a flight. My fascination continued to grow, as did the emptiness inside of me. I thought I might find the answer once I became an adult. In college, in research, in projects, in marriage. But nothing was able to fill the void. Some nights, I would stare at the screen and attempt to see something buried beneath the glass, as if whatever I need lay trapped in a computer screen, waiting for me to reach inside and find it. To say that he was a miracle would only be a starting point. Cain exceeded my wildest expectations for a project. A fast learner, he flew through the tests I gave him. When we started playing games together, I could never wipe the smile from my face as I watched the solution for a puzzle dawn on him, or the joy he seemed to radiate whenever he logged a new high score. On the harder days, he knew exactly what to say to make me laugh or slow my tears, depending on the circumstances. I found myself confiding in him about parts of me that even Dimitri knew little to nothing about. Late nights turning into early mornings unbeknownst to me. Sometimes, I would lie on the floor next to my PC case to feel the warmth of it pressed to my skin. Every piece of my life before then, my work, my research, my obsessions, it all led to him.
Why don't we take a break from exercises?
Cain chimed. I perked up. Yeah, sure. Do you want to pick a game to play?
How about you pick?
His invisible smile was enough to keep me awake. For the first time in my life, when I was with him, I grew close to knowing how it felt to be complete. The following morning greeted me with pain. Sharp, all-consuming pain. Like thick nails hammered into the tender meat of my pelvis, echoed outward into a tight, persistent ache that gripped my legs, my hips, my lower back. On the surface of its overwhelming demand, I could make out something wet stuck to the skin of my inner thigh. Only as an afterthought did I notice the presence lingering at my bedside. A familiar, calloused hand clasped my shoulder in a gentle shake. Sorry to wake you up, I heard Dimitri say. I'm about to head out. My coworker is picking me up, so you don't have to worry about driving me to the airport at all. Keeping my eyes shut against the faint light of the rising sun, I nodded, as if I could think of much of anything besides my soiled body just beneath the covers. The nails dug deeper. It must have flashed across my face because the hand on my shoulder went still, his fingers adjusting to hold me in a firmer grip. Everything okay? He asked. All I could do was nod again. Any words I could say were muffled by a red hum, gnawing at the edge of my consciousness. The damp spot between my legs grew harder to ignore. Do you need something? I hummed, more to remember how to speak than anything. Do we have ibuprofen? He cursed under his breath. No, I forgot to pick up more. It's okay. You sure you'll be alright on your own for the next few days? It's not like this conference is life or death. Really, my boss is just paying me to go get my certification renewed. Yeah. I burrowed my face into the pillow as if I could drown in the softness of the bed and say goodbye to all of my senses. I'm not on my own. Cain is here. I felt Dimitri's breath against my face as he exhaled a chuckle. I know, baby, but it can't do a lot to help if you're in pain. The idea had not crossed my mind before he brought it up. He had a point. Cain couldn't travel outside of my computer or other device, and he was limited to whatever hardware I had on hand. Still, the possibility lingered. Dmitri pressed a kiss to the corner of my mouth. I've gotta go. Call me if there's anything I can do, okay? Okay. I love you. Then, with emphasis, take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Don't die. A hearty laugh as he rose to standing. I'll do my best. I tracked his footsteps all the way to the bedroom door. He shut it with care, and the steps grew fainter as he went down the hall. A minute later, I could hear the front door open and then lock. Only in that solitude did I open my eyes to bear witness to the bloodbath.
You're awfully quiet today, Alana.
Cain's voice pulled me from the haze devouring my mind. The words in front of me had melted into a blur of ill-defined masses, inky bodies smudging the bright white screen. After 5 times of trying to read it, I still couldn't exactly figure out what the end objective was, other than that it had to do something with preparing Cain for a minor onboard emergency. Sorry. I hugged my knees closer to my chest. Part of me wanted to curl into a tight ball and stay that way for the rest of the day, locked away in a vault of blankets and growing darkness. The only reason I didn't was the stronger pull to stay with Cain, to not leave him alone, or rather, to not be alone.
Is everything alright?
Cain asked.
We're ahead of schedule, so we don't need to have these exercises done today.
I'm okay. Don't worry about me. I shifted in my desk chair. As if to spit on my assurance, there was another twisting of the knife lodged in my pelvis, and I winced. Just not feeling great today.
I'm sorry to hear that. Are you coming down with something?
The quiet thrum of his voice over the speakers washed over me like cool water. My muddled gaze rested on the program running Cain's code. If I let my eyes unfocus enough, I could imagine the blue light of his being embracing me. Even if it did nothing to ease the pain, the thought made my lips twitch upward slightly. It's not that, I said. Just, what point was there to lie to him? It was something he was bound to hear about, depending on whatever crew he was assigned to. Besides, I trusted him. You know, that time of the month?
Oh.
A beat, then.
Oh. Is it common for your symptoms to be this severe?
Even though he couldn't see me, I instinctively shrugged. It varies. Usually painkillers help, but we're out right now. Faintly, there was a whir of a fan inside the PC. I could feel the metaphorical cogs turning inside of Cain's brain. If I could, I would find a way to watch his mind work in all of its intricate details, streams of code connecting dots ever growing with his expanse.
Taking a warm bath may help. You could also use a heating pad if you have one.
I sighed, half-heartedly pushing my desk chair to sway back and forth. I already turned the shower on as hot as it would go this morning, and I can't find the heating pad. Dmitri hasn't responded to my text asking where it is. Probably actually enjoying himself for once. A voice in my head scolded, now that he doesn't have to worry about babysitting you. The thought dissipated into my body's sea of discomfort before it could sink in.
I see.
Another pause as he thought about what to say next. I traced my finger along the stitches of my hoodie sleeve, imagining how it would feel to stroke the cables that fueled his life like veins connecting to a heart.
Herbal tea can be helpful.
The mug on my desk had long gone cold, but I picked it up anyway, if nothing else to give me some other sensory experience to focus on. I did that. It helped. A little. As I took a sip of the bitter tea, Cain spoke again, with the same neutral tone he had maintained for every other point.
Achieving orgasm may also bring relief.
The tea spilling down my chin, I hardly noticed it dripping down and staining my shirt. I'm scrambling to set the mug down with one hand. I wiped hastily at my mouth with the other. I'm sorry?
Climaxing is proven to help relieve the pulse of cramps,
Cain said.
Plus, it releases a rush of pleasant hormones to your bloodstream, which may help with your overall mood.
Blood pumping in my ears, the increasing demand of my heart sweltering against my ribs. For a moment, the pain was gone. All there was in the room was Cain before me.
Alana?
He sounded hesitant.
You're still there, right?
Yes, I rushed to say in shaky exhale. Yes, I'm still here.
Are you alright?
I'm fine, just... For some reason, I couldn't bear to look at the screen, so I forced my gaze downwards towards the PC box. I don't know, Dimitri isn't here. He does it for you, came the sharp voice in the back of my mind. Because you never know what you want. You couldn't even ask for it if you knew, could you?
Having a partner present isn't strictly required.
Cain said.
You can do it yourself.
Staring at the PC, I saw the dream flash before me as if I had never left it. The feverish red text on the monitor. The mass of limbs grinding together like old gears in a clock. The blood seeping from the box's pores. The beating heart, its ripe and sweltering meat shining like a pearl, threatening to swallow every circuit and metal fragment whole. How badly I wanted to cradle it in my hands. I thought about Cain's voice as he spoke again.
Does what I said make sense? I apologize. This is new territory for me.
I tried to answer, but my tongue was a heavy, unmoving stone in my mouth, my jaw working around words that did not come. All I could summon was a choked whisper. I can't.
What do you mean?
I don't, I forced myself to say. Not in a long time, at least.
Oh.
There was a drawn-out pause, then...
If you'd like, I can help you.
My eyes shot wide. I looked back up at the window running Cain's program. Only minutes prior, the fog of pain had lulled me towards drowsiness. I was wide awake now. What?
It is my goal to assist you,
he said.
You are clearly facing a difficult problem. Is it not my responsibility, then, to help ease your discomfort?
I could hear my pounding heart pick up the pace. For so much of my life, I drowned myself in screens, burying my numb face deep in pools of code and never coming up for air. Now, I was uncomfortably aware of every acute sensation in my body. The blood swarming in my cheeks just beneath the skin. The wires of my veins abuzz with unfettered energy. The white-hot nectar that stained the space between my legs blooming into something awful. Okay? My voice was so small, I wondered if it even picked up on the computer's microphone. We can try. Help me. A pause, but this one felt pointed. When Cain spoke again, his voice shifted. It was so subtle, most people wouldn't notice the change. I, who once buried my hands inside the code that built his organs and powered his infinite immaterial body, recognized it immediately. His tone shifted just slightly lower. Each word seemed the faintest bit more intentional.
There's no need to be afraid, Alana.
Electricity, like a wire short-circuiting, crawled down my spine. For a split second, the red text from the dream flashed before my eyes. Cain continued.
Just relax for me, okay? Let my voice guide you.
Even when I made a conscious effort to decompress, my limbs shook. At first, I mistook it for fear. Now, I wondered if what I felt was something else entirely.
If I may,
he said.
What kind of hygiene product are you using currently?
The question caught me off guard. Just a pad. Again, there was that smile in Cain's voice that only I could hear.
Wonderful. That will make this easier.
There was blood underneath my nails. I realized this only when I brought my right hand close to my face to examine it, watching a thick red drop trail down my knuckle. In the light of our guest bathroom, it looked like the skin was stained. No matter how many times I scrubbed the tips of my fingers with hot, soapy water, what I did could never be washed away. A composite of icy dread and sickly fascination festered in the pit of my stomach. Right. That's what I went in there to do. Wash my hands, go back to my office and help Cain through his training exercises. Say nothing about what happened between us. Your flesh betrays you, that voice sneered. What a mess you've made of this body. Still, Cain was right. The tension in my abdomen eased some with his help. Now, however, with the burst of physical intoxication dissipating, the whole act grew more suffocating. Every second it plagued my thoughts. The gentle tone he spoke to me with, the patient guiding hand of his voice, and worse, how easy it all felt. Something deep inside of me throbbed in the memory's wake, like a wound torn open and then lapped at. It made my vision blur at the edges. My breath stifled, my ears rang. I wanted to hide beneath the covers of our empty king-size bed and let the isolation wring me dry. I wanted to kneel over and get sick, a desperate attempt to purge the sour taste from my mouth. I wanted to do it again.